So, but I'll put all that together.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order of the regularly scheduled Superior Town Council meeting at 7 o'clock. I will call roll. Councilmember Armitage.
Here.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Here.
Councilwoman Arvedette. Here. Councilmember Estatico.
Here.
And I am present to let the record note Vice Mayor Alonso and Councilmember Lopez do have excused absences today. If everyone would please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In 1 John chapter 2, verse 3, we are told that we know who God is in our lives when we keep His commandments. Lord, we thank you for leading us in your truth. Thank you for loving us unconditionally. We ask that you guide our thoughts, our words, and our actions this evening. Let your presence here be felt by each one of us. Thank you for sharing your love with us. In your holy name we pray. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our special presentations, and this is Carl Kilgore is with the GLH and project manager for the team that is working on the design for the new multi-generational center. He will give a brief introduction of their team and plans for connecting with the public for their input. They are planning public workshops on October 16th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and on October 24th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Superior Town Hall. Before Carl gets started, because we have many people in the public, our multi-gen center concept is part of one of our agreements with Resolution Copper, where part of the funding is coming from them. So this first phase of funding is what's paying for the architectural design. The multi-gen center is slated to be here in this building with a complete redo of this building, remodeling, and then construction of a new gym. So I'm going to turn it over to Carl. Thank you very much. And the Community Development Committee had a subcommittee who worked on this and went through all the bids. So turning it over to you. Thank you, Carl.
It's not a great mic.
Okay, all right. I'm Carl Kilgore. I'm the architectural department manager with GLH and Architects and Engineers. We have offices in Tucson and Phoenix, and we have in-house engineering, which includes civil engineering, mechanical, and electrical, that will be working on this project. So my role on this project is a project manager, so I'm kind of herding the cats, if you know, using an analogy, kind of managing the team, making sure everybody stays on point, on schedule, and can everybody hear me?
I had a councilman indicating.
Yeah, it's a little tough on our end. Maybe they're to hear, but
Okay. So we're currently going through 2 phases. The initial phase is called the programming phase, which is where we're kind of getting public input. For those of you that may or may not have seen, we set up a website where there's some survey questionnaires on there that you can interact with. So we gather information. We'll have several workshops for you guys to kind of come and work with us and provide information. And so we'll determine what all of the various space requirements are going to be, the square footages, the uses, and then we start to use that to move into a design phase. So I'd like to introduce our project architect, Miguel Camacho.
Good evening. My name is Miguel Camacho. I'll be the project architect for this project. During the design phase and the construction document phase, I'll be coordinating the work of our engineers and developing the set of documents that we use to construct and build the project. I also will be looking at life safety issues. During the schematic design phase, what Carl explained was that the first phase is programming. That's where we're going to define the problem. We're going to get everybody's input, including the committee members and the community. But then during the schematic design phase, we're going to develop concepts. And we'll also ask for input for people to come by, read the work, and give us their input so that we make sure that we understand the priorities of the community and what they want to see, and keep those as our guide throughout the process. Leading us in the design efforts will be Russ Combs. I'd like to introduce him.
Hi, I'm Russ Combs. I'm the lead designer for GLH Architects and Engineers. I'll be leading the design effort for the entire project. Carl and Miguel talked about the first two phases, which is programming and schematic design. The phase after that, which is further development of the design after schematic design, is called design development. Throughout all these two phases, we're going to be reaching out and engaging with the town of Superior. Our goal for this project, and excuse the pun, but we want to come up with a superior building for you guys. It is our goal to make this building about Superior. It's a multi-generation building. It's the future, part of the future, and we want it to reflect the character, the people, and the community of Superior. So your input is vital to that. We need as many ideas, suggestions, concepts, opinions, so we can embody that into the design. And those community meetings that you heard coming up will be important to that, and there will be others after that as well. So I look forward to, we all look forward to working with you.
So the design phases will take place probably over the next 6 months to get through programming, schematic design, design development. And then we move into what's called the construction document phase, which is really where we're taking that design and translating it into a legal document, which will guide the contractor for building the building. I did want to make one clarification. The guys put me in that the 16th, the workshop that we plan to do on the 16th, it sounds like our effort primarily will be data gathering. We want to get over to the senior center, the library, and talk to all of those major stakeholders while they're here. So we'll probably go ahead and just, after the 24th, we'll schedule another workshop for that following week.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you all for coming. We're very excited to kick this project off. It's something I think that this council has really set as a big, huge goal, and it's really great to have you guys on our team. So congratulations. I know your contracts are all signed, and now we're going to get started. And for the public, this is a really exciting time, so please try to participate with the online surveys, or if you see one of their booths at community events, and or attend the public meetings. These are great times to talk about what you'd like to see in the Multi-Gen Center and those types of activities. Because remember, this brings in all of our services: senior center, library, gym, and then classroom spaces. Right now, the classrooms are being used for dance classes and art classes and lots of different activities as it is right now in meetings. So we're really looking forward to that. I'm going to move on to staff reports and council. I don't have a whole lot of new things. I did want to bring up to everyone's attention that the U of A has put their house, the Hill House, that's the little house on top of the hill, for sale. That's 19 acres. We believe that they'll be making a decision. There are several offers. There has been some local concern, especially from that of the Arboretum Board on the sale of that property, and I reached out to Dean Burgess just to let him know that we do have some desires on how that property be developed in a way that meets Superior's goals and the efforts that we have with the Arboretum. So we did make some engagement. I'd like to congratulate Chief Alanis. He competed in the Spartan race a couple of weeks ago in California, and we're really excited. Unfortunately, he's not running the borough race, but we had a meeting this week with a gentleman who's going to be planning a 100-mile endurance foot race and bicycling race that will be starting and ending in Superior, and that will be in the end of February. So I believe Chief is going to probably be leading the way on one of those heats of runners. Maybe not, I don't think we can let him go for 100 miles, but that's another big event that's coming our way. So congratulations, Chief. That shows you have a lot of endurance. So thank you. With that being said, please don't forget we have lots of Halloween events. I know our youth council's been working really hard with the VFW and Optimist Club. The witches are practicing. The witches dance is practicing right now, and borough races are this weekend. And thank you to all the volunteers it takes to put all of those activities together. But I think we're pretty much caught up with my particular report, and I'll turn it over to Todd for anything he might have.
most everything I'm working on is on tonight's agenda. We have progressed further with USDA on the wastewater treatment plant, and they should be finalizing the contracts with the engineers soon, and we should start design on that. Hopefully that project will actually begin construction within 6 months. It may take as long as a year to get started.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. And council, I'm going to ask for your approval to approve the minutes of special meeting work session on September 12th, 2019. The approval of minutes of the regular meeting on September 12th, 2019. Approval of the Town of Superior alcohol permit for Henry Hernandez for a baby shower at the US 60 Park on October 12, 2019 from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Approval of the Town of Superior alcohol permit for Luis Rabago for a baby shower at the Magna Club on November 10th from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Approval of Town of Superior alcohol permit for Marcia Hansen for a wedding at the Magna Club on February 29th from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. Approval of a state alcohol permit for the Legends of Superior Trails by Joami Lagos Vesage on Friday, November 8th, 2019 from 5 p.m. to midnight at Roses Gecko Deco, which is at 203 Main Street, Superior, Arizona. Approval of state plan of operations between the state of Arizona and the Superior Police Department to set forth the terms and conditions which will be binding on the parties with respect to excess Department of Defense property, personal property, transferred pursuant to 10 U.S.C. 2576A in order to promote the efficient and expeditious transfer of property and to ensure accountability of the same. And number 8, approval of agreement between the Central Arizona CAG and the Town of Superior for CAG to provide consulting services for the USDA Rural Development Wastewater Treatment Plan Improvements 2019 project, hereinafter referred to as Project CAG number 222-920-19, and all of our department reports. Council, is there anything you'd like to have removed from the agenda, from the consent agenda for further discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
There's a motion by Councilmember Statico. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Aguilar. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And I just want to recognize Mr. Urban. Alan Urban is here. He's been truly instrumental to our community in helping us receive these USDA grants and helping us manage those processes and CDBG projects. So thank you, Alan. You are appreciated because you're definitely a good member on our team.
Well, I'm happy to help, and thank you for selecting us again to run one of your projects.
Well, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. Discussion possible approval of ordinance 19-159, an ordinance of the Town of Superior amending Article 7, Plan Development PD Zone District Section 12.0 of the Town Zoning Ordinance. This is zoning action 1. This amendment is consistent with the town's general plan and development and is therefore in compliance with state law. Council, this is the item that we tabled at last month's meeting. We had a typo on the agenda, and this is in regards to the new dry camping ordinances to comply with our improved RV use ordinance. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion by Councilmember Armitage. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Navarrete. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move on to agenda item B. And the first part of this agenda item is a public hearing. We have a public hearing, discussion, possible approval of ordinance number 19-161, an ordinance of the Town of Superior's rezoning property from the urban residential R1-8 zone district to the multiple family residential R3 zone district. Our staff does recommend approving this ordinance and discussion. The purpose of this rezoning is to provide residents with affordable workforce housing, townhomes, condominiums, and apartments near the shopping center, junior-senior high school, and Highway 60. The properties in question are located in close proximity to the main roads and school mixed-use DMU land use designation, which is compatible with the R3 zone districts. This R3 zone district is intended to encourage revitalization of existing structures for, among other uses, residential development. It is further the intent of the multiple family residential R3 zone district to allow the continuation of town standards within the newer sections of the community while encouraging an environmental of residential housing with higher residential densities. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing, but before I start taking calls to the public, I want to remind everyone, this is a zoning ordinance change. This is not approving any particular development. This does not approve that, yes, there's going to be apartments or townhomes or a shopping center. That's not what this action tonight is about. This is about allowing the town to allow that kind of development. Any developer, per people who own the property, will have to submit a planned development. They'll have to submit, all the engineering and all of those types of things. They'll have to go through the code and planning and zoning. So I want to make sure that we preface that, because these are things that are happening more frequently in the community, and I want to make sure everybody understands how complex the process really is. So, and again, with all of these things comes budgets and all sorts of things. This doesn't mean that apartments are going to get built in 6 months. It doesn't mean that apartments are going to get built in 5 years. It very well could happen, but we are experiencing a critical housing shortage in Superior right now. Our young people are having a hard time finding homes. Workforce housing is getting much more difficult. So I have to preface that's where this is coming from. We have a request from the developer, and also, I lost my train of thought on this for a minute, but anywho, I just want to preface those things, that this is where we're coming from, so everybody kind of has an understanding. Because it's confusing for us, I have to remind myself of all these steps, because it is a little overwhelming. So with that being said, I'll open the public comments. You'll need to address the comments from the mic. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes to address the council. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Planning and zoning, this did have to go through the planning and zoning process, and they did approve it 6-1. So it has made it through that process. So I'll start taking public comments now.
Okay. You want to do? My name is Margaret Kelly Clark, and I was asked by some citizens in the community, knowing my background, they asked me if I could look into this. And I guess I should tell you my background first. In Tempe, I was on the Tempe Design Review Board for 3 months shy of 10 years. I was there from 1986 to 1996. That was the real heyday. Sometimes we had as many as 72 cases a month to look into. I did everything from site planning to signage. Now, some of those 72 cases, yes, were on consent agenda, but all the rest of them, I had to go out and evaluate them. And I did multifamily, industrial, and commercial. And if you didn't like the decision the board I was on made, you didn't go back to the council. You had to go to the Arizona State Supreme Court. And so at any rate, that's what my background is and why they thought maybe I could look into this, which I did. I went and I walked the property twice. And afterward, last Tuesday, I called Chris Wanamaker's office, which is for FEMA. And that office told me that that property is evaluated by FEMA. It has a rating of A, which is the worst possible rating you can get for flood plain in their ratings. And so, knowing that, I asked them, I said, I understand last year you were considering, Superior was considering in the county to reevaluate the floodplain plans for Superior. Because like you mentioned Heener earlier, and I know personally that Heener has never flooded ever in 100 years. That's the purpose to it. And yet Heener, people have gone to the town requesting to build on their lots, and they've been told they cannot build because it is floodplain destined by FEMA, and it's not an A rating of that. So at any rate, I asked them about it, and they said that they have finished their report for Superior and the county. It was turned in a couple months ago. They've not heard anything. They're hoping FEMA will fast track it, and they said it may take as long as 2 to 4 years to get a new floodplain plan for the town of Superior. So in the meantime, this particular property will maintain an A rating, which, like I told you, is the worst rating you can have. And so the gentleman asked me, when I called, he said, did they do any kind of preliminary soil test, grading, anything prior to submitting this to your planning and zoning? And I said, I have no idea. But I do know in Tempe, when I was there, that when you were requesting a zoning change, you had to turn in a soil report, you had to turn in storm drains, you had to turn in road conditions, you had to turn in, I don't remember what else. There were 20 items prior to having a zoning change. So in this case, I kind of think that this should be put on hold, either not voted on or denied, until FEMA comes up with the next evaluation for Superior. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment.
My name is Rosalie Padilla. I live on 113 South Christopher Avenue. I'm one of 9 residents that live in the single-family homes that we have there. And of the 9, there are 6 families that are young families with children. And I just want to say with the planning and zoning, they just chased away that family, because if you rezone to an R3 from what we have as a single resident home, those families have young children, and they're not going to put them in danger of any kind. We don't know what kind of people they're going to be bringing in. We don't know if they're going to have background checks. We don't know where they're from. And it's just a risk we're not willing to take. Then, the multiple family residents and that area, it is in a floodplain zone, and I'm sure everybody has the map and has seen it. I think it would be irresponsible of anyone to try and raise apartments or any kind of housing in an area that they may be harmed or health might be involved in any kind of flooding. So I believe that this should not be denied. I believe that we shouldn't rezone it. It should stay as is. And I believe a young family would prefer to live in a single-family home instead of an apartment complex because of the privacy and other issues with their young families. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next comment.
I just want to correct one issue. Ms. Clark made it sound like all the properties in Zone A is. There's a large portion that is out of Zone A. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about flood zone, because I've been involved in it. It is not all in Zone A. A large portion is out of Zone A.
Yes.
My name is Roya Rolls, and I'm representing Northern Arizona Restorations, the owner of the 17 acres of land. I had a whole spiel I had planned out, but you did a great job at kind of breaking everything down, so I won't bore you guys with this again. I know we have some faces that I saw last week as well. I just want to point out that just because the apartment complexes are allowed in this R3 zoning doesn't 100% mean that they're going up. Like she had mentioned, we're simply asking for the support and the approval to get us to that next step and receive an approval for R3 to then really dive deeper into a design plan where you'll see exactly how many apartments we'll have and that compared to the ratio of townhomes that we would have on this plot of land. We're aware of the issues with the land as far as what is in and out of a flood zone or floodplain and how we plan to design around that. But like I said last week, we just haven't put as much time and resources into the specific planning of it to get us to step 2, since most of our focus was on just taking these meetings step by step and making sure that the zoning was approved first. And like it was mentioned, apartments may come up, apartments may not, single-family homes still could come up, like I mentioned last week. So just because we receive a more dense zoning doesn't mean that we might not develop a less dense development down the road. It really is dependent on what Superior needs, what can change in a few years down the road, how long the design process takes, that involves us coming back to the town and including the residents. So I just want to reiterate again that our plan is really to work hand in hand to make sure the town's needs are met, the residents feel heard and what you guys want to see. And I can assure you that any development that would take place down the road would have more than enough of the proper means to create a secure development that wouldn't put other surrounding properties or those residents in harm by any means. And I know that last week it was mentioned that there was a concern with safety of kids playing in regards to where this parcel is situated at, but really either way, it's a residential zoned piece of land right now. So those homes that could be built in the future, they're going to face that same problem that was brought up last week, if that even would be a problem. I think as long as it's done right and things are done well, that those problems can be avoided. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of the owners, and like I said, I had a few things I would go over, but you've done a great job at listing them off, so that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
I'm going to do a section, I'm going to check with everybody else first and I'll come back to you, okay? Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to address the council at this time? Yes. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, just, we'll take turns. Oh, and Hank, sorry, Mr. Gutierrez.
Hi, I'm Ken Cook. I live at 230 Terrace Drive. And I just wanted to support the rezoning to a higher density because, you know, the idea that this town's going to have a larger population in the future, near future, is a real one. And the kind of development that we're talking about, multifamily, isn't economically viable without the zoning. You could be building single-family residence down there right now. And so that's the key, like you mentioned, that's what the discussion is about. It's not about a project, it's about having the tools to be able to develop multifamily. And I think that's something that this town needs and that we should do. And Margarita, I just wanted to thank you for pointing out all of the stringent requirements of the city of Tempe. Thank God we don't have those here, so we can do things in an efficient way. I have a piece of property in Tempe that I'm selling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Okay, we had another comment. You were next?
Yes. Hi, my name is Nicole Welch, and I live at 107 South Christopher Avenue. And I'm one of those residents that this resident is talking about. I feel a little inadequate at this point because I'm pretty new to the area, and one of the reasons that I did move here is because it is a small town, and because I feel like my children are safer. I come from a very populated area, and it's a concern of mine for 2 reasons. One of them is I love the town of Superior, and I love the feel of it, and I love the people and just the mentality around
safety and, and of course growing the town at the same time, but I haven't been here that long. So with that in mind, my concern is my children's safety, and as a new homeowner, I really do wonder what this rezoning will do to the value of my property, and I'm concerned about that. And it's hard to determine, of course, when you're growing a city, which I believe the city will grow, and I'm hopeful that it will. But I just, again, I'm concerned about my children's safety and the value of my home when we do rezoning. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gutierrez, I had you, your hand was the third hand up in the last sweep.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm a resident of Superior, born and raised, so I've been here a long time, family fourth generation, so I have a good understanding of our community, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. I guess it's one of those NIMBY things. Christopher, not in my backyard. Totally understandable. However, there was a comment made about, well, first of all, I do support the change in the zoning. Because all that means is just a change in zoning. If there's a developer out there that wants to look at it, they can't even start to do any kind of concepts as to what's actually going to go there. And as far as the flood aspects of it being a Class A or A, that's the risk of the developer. They know those risks that are involved. So, you know what? Buyer beware for the developer, but they're not going to go into this project knowing or do something that's going to be detrimental to the project as a whole, because there's liabilities involved. You talk about safety, and we can't control who moves into our town. It doesn't matter what we build. I mean, even in my neighborhood, somebody can move to my next door. I can't control who lives there. I may not feel safe. We can't do that. We can't shut ourselves out from the outside. So I'm sure whatever comes up, when they bring back a design based on the zoning change, that it's up to the planning and zoning and the council to accept those initial designs of what it can or cannot be. So, like Mr. Cook said, we're not Tempe. We're not even, I don't even want to be close to Tempe, and I understand all the things that Tempe went through, especially on Mill. So those are concerns. But it doesn't, I think a lot of those things are kind of overreaching to put that kind of requirement on any future development that comes into our community. I support it. I don't think safety is going to be an issue any different than where anyone else moves within our community. And I just hope it's a development that does attract young families. That's the biggest thing that we need. There's enough room to support families of 4, at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Is there any last calls from the public, from anyone who has not already addressed the council? Okay, hearing none, I will allow you to come back up, Mrs. Padilla.
Thank you so much. I'm Rosalie, but my concern is the rezoning isn't going to be a small section on that plot. It's going to be for 17 acres. Now, even if only half of it is in the floodplain zone, they're asking to rezone the entire 17 acres. That's the issue, and that's what's got to be considered. And still, until that land is looked at by FEMA, it's wrong to rezone it and leave it as it is until everything is worked out correctly. And it's done, and it's corrected by whoever's going to develop it, or FEMA, and not rezone yet. It's not qualified for any kind of residence because it's not just a little piece, it's the whole thing. That's my issue.
Thank you very much. I will make one last call. Anyone else? Hearing none, I will turn the public hearing over back to council discussion And in a comment, I appreciate everyone coming and addressing the council. This is an important role of being a citizen in the community, and as we have an important job to listen to everyone. We also have big jobs that we have to think about, not just right now and not just a year from now. We have to think about what could be in the future. And that oftentimes leaves our jobs a little bit difficult, but you've trusted us to make the right choices, and we're trying to make the best choices we can for the community as a whole. We also have to address that as a national trend, affordable housing is becoming a harder and harder thing to come by, and having homes that people can afford that are safe and actually habitable is important, and that's something that we're lacking in our community. It's one of the biggest needs that has come to our attention, that, you know, how many families are living 2 or 3 generations in a house because we don't have enough affordable housing. How many young people have to leave our community because there is not affordable housing or a home that they could buy or they could rent affordably and work at our schools and work at local companies or build their own business. So those are some of the thought processes that we have to put into play. Some of the technicalities that people have brought up tonight, I think I can safely address them. Anything, again, we're going to just recap that tonight's decision is about the rezone. It does not mean that the developer, the property owner, may decide that, you know what, this is really I can only develop 10 of the 17 acres because of this floodplain issue, because I can't build in this area, or I have to have this much green space. They can't get to that point and start investing that money until a rezoning is done. So they have to go through this phase. This gives them the most amount of options. They have to come back to the community. They have to go back to planning and zoning. They have to go back to letting their neighbors know what's going to go on. We'll have a whole other discussion, maybe in a year, maybe 6 months. It could be 5 years from now before an actual discussion even happens. So tonight's discussion, I have to bring everybody back that it's really just about where are places that we can put quality homes, affordable housing for people, and it will still meet all the safety requirements. They can't build in a floodway. They'll have to go through the proper FEMA. All of that has to be addressed, but when they get to a developmental plan, and they may determine it's in our best interest to build, you know, bigger houses and not build apartments. That's up to the developer to decide, but they can't get there unless we've allowed some different options for them to consider without the rezoning. So that's why we're here tonight. Council, do you have any questions, or Mr. Pryor?
I would like to address a little bit about the floodplain regulations. Pinal County has last year changed their floodplain rules, and they do allow construction in floodways, but with an engineered plan to deal with the issue. So they would have to come back to Pinal County, present a plan to raise that property out of the floodplain in order to build on that section. So rezoning those properties to R3 would allow them to submit that proposal to Pinal County. Right now, 5 acres of the property is out of the floodplain and 7 is in. So even without a floodplain redesignation or those new rules, they can build on about a little over a third of the property.
Council, any further questions or comments for council decision, before council decision? I guess I'm going to close the public hearing is closed and ask council.
So can I ask questions of the developer? Is that?
Oh, you will stay in public hearing, so you can ask that question.
I do have. Is there a scenario that you've looked at where you would develop it single family homes? I guess is your presentation just focused on townhomes and condominiums and possibly apartments? Is there any plans that you guys have looked at that's just single?
No, that wasn't our plan when we were going over possible design options. We strongly believe that a mixture of the apartments and townhomes and condos really gives us the best option to cater to the growth, and we were thinking that it will cater to sort of 2 different demographics that would come in. So those apartment complexes for people that aren't in a family and they're just single and they have an option, or people that do have a family and they want a home, but not as much maintenance that a full-blown home would bring, or even a retirement community that's coming in, that when they get to that point, they want less, responsibilities to take care of with what a full-blown home would bring.
No,
So it's,
and I do understand that we're gonna have a need. Where the town has a need, is gonna have a need in the near future for alternatives. And I get that. My next question is, your partner or the same owner owns property that is already classified as R3. So why was that area not considered for this development?
So we're dealing with two different ownership types. So that piece of land is solely owned by him, and this piece of land is owned by Northern Arizona Restorations, which is a general partnership with Greg Rolls being my dad, being the general partner, meaning he has essentially the say and end-all be-all for what actually happens. So he's in control in this sense, and with how our structure and ownership is changing with just our company in general, it's really leaving Greg, I guess, in charge as opposed to the other owner. I mean, he is 85 and he's kind of just sitting back, and I think he is trying to fully retire. You never know. But with this scenario, we're only dealing with this property and it's under a different ownership where somebody else is in charge.
I do have one last question. I would like to consider the option. I just feel like it's all or nothing as far as this rezoning. There are 3 parcels that are on Christopher. So would it be possible to consider that those 3, and they're smaller parcels, to remain as R1A versus the entire 17 acres being rezoned?
Can I answer that?
I would defer to the property owner. I do know the answer to that question, but I would defer to the answer.
Okay. I would say that I know what you mean by kind of making it feel like it's all or nothing when we're dealing with multiple parcels that make up 17 acres, so I understand where you're coming from. But our preliminary design plans and our kind of overall idea and concept includes that. And so I think that it makes it more viable for us to include that in there, and also gives us more possibilities with different design concepts that we can bring back to the town and say, hey, these are some options that we considered, and that piece is really viable with the design concepts going forward. So that piece is important to us to have. So for us, I would like to have that included, but I understand where you're coming from with it feels like an all or nothing.
And an important issue I'd raise on it is most of the buildable land is it's already out of the floodplain is on that area. So if they do a flood plan mitigation plan of some sort and get a permit, most likely at least a portion of the lower land is going to be involved in that flood plan mitigation. They have retention structures, ponds. They may not be able to build on that lower section. The area on the upper end is the area that we're sure they're going to be able to build on.
Questions? I don't have any questions.
Council, any more questions? Go ahead.
I just want to say, I know you were concerned about it growing out of, we were about 12,000 strong when the mine was going full speed. And we can only grow so much. We're all surrounded by the forest. So this little bit, it's not going to make a big thing. So values, yeah. Your property will probably jump because you got new construction. So it falls, you know, and concerns, and we understand our concerns, and that's what we're here, to hear the concerns. But, you know, but we've been here, I was here when The new addition wasn't here. There was 3 houses here. And look at that. I mean, it's been, so, there's gonna be some development, a huge development, no. But there's gonna be some development.
We do have the challenge of being landlocked, and that makes it very difficult. And that's why, you know, the community's transforming, we're going through a renaissance, a lot of things are changing, and we're going through these more frequently. And no matter how we look at, you could put a dot on the town and say, let's go to 300-mile radius. Somebody's neighborhood will be affected. And for us to grow and our community to thrive, we sometimes have to accept different changes, and that's why we go through these processes. I do have one question, and I know I've talked about it with staff internally, but I think it needs to come up. We talked about view sheds and what are height requirements. I know it wasn't brought up by the public, but I think it was brought up maybe in one of the resident meetings.
Yes.
Can you address that for me, please?
The change in zoning does not change the height at all. They're only allowed 28 feet in both zoning districts. It changes the density. So if you look at the Highlands, there's not a lot, A blocks and pretty heavy view because they're 2-story buildings right next to each other. Those are R1A. So they could build that sort of subdivision right now. There's nothing to stop them from building it. So the difference would be, in this case, is that they can do those as apartment complexes with shared common walls and get more density on the lot. One of the things that came out of the previous hearing is that the owner has committed to doing public outreach meetings and getting feedback from the public. And they also said that they would commit to decreasing the view shed only by 30%. That's one of the numbers they presented at that meeting. That would be something that, having been spoken in the planning and zoning meeting, that they could hold them accountable for in design review. So it's those issues would have to be addressed going forward, but they would have to be addressed for the same way for any sort of the existing development density thereof.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. With that being said, and the public hearing being closed, if there's no further questions from the council, I'll open it up for council deliberation and/or action at this time.
Can I ask a quick question?
I will allow it, yes.
Okay, thank you. With us being on a one-way, how is that going to work? Where is there going to be another way to?
That type of
wall or?
that type of discussion will come when they actually start meeting with the neighbors to discuss the plan review. And they start to decide what they want to do. Then all of that has to go through, it'll have to go through engineering, what is the ingress and egress to that property? Where do the roads have to be repaired? How do those types of, where are things does there have to be a minimum number of trees? All those things, but that's not part of tonight's, those are not decisions that get approved tonight. It's just how the land can be developed in the future after this is approved. And again, it's very overwhelming because all this makes you feel like it's going to happen tomorrow, or it's going to happen next year, or and a lot of this takes a lot of time. So this is just the very first step in a pretty detailed process, and more time for public hearing. So you'll have a whole, if it goes through, you're going to have a whole other set of hearings to go through to share what you want. And I believe Mr. Rawls and Raya, I don't want to call you Mr. and Ms. maybe because you're father and daughter. I appreciate their commitment to be meeting with the residents, and I like to encourage that you all as neighbors start getting together and talk about what you'd like to see in your neighborhood. So with that being said, council, any further deliberation or discussion?
I just want to make a comment. As council members, we are council at large. We don't just consider one piece of property, but we have to consider the town as a whole. And at this point in time, we are residential poor. So I think it behooves the council to actually make this zone change so that we can, down the road, see what our options are. if we restrict at this point the zone change, then that means that we're restricting our options in the future. As some of the council have already said, this is going to be a long process. It's not going to be just 1 or 2 meetings. This is going to be extensive. And we have to, as a town, as a council, we have to allow ourselves as many options as we can. So I think it's, at this point, I think it's wise to make this zone change. I think there are plenty of options down the road to be able to stop things that we don't want. We've done that already as a council. So I think at this point in time, I actually see no reason at all why we shouldn't approve this zone change. That's my personal opinion.
All right, council, any further questions, comments, Mr. Statico?
I agree with Bruce wholeheartedly. So we've been through this process before. We approved one a couple months ago, just like that, and residents were here. But it is a long process, and I do appreciate you guys coming out and the civility that took place here. We didn't have that in this building a long time ago. So with that said,
Can I just make one more comment? Because I forgot to do it. And then I just forgot to say that, I understand that there's residents here that are very skeptical. We hear you. It is our responsibility to listen to what you say. I took notes. I'm very much aware of those of you that have conflicts with this project. But at the same time, I just go back to what I said. I think as far as the town is concerned, we're residential poor. We need to at least allow the soil to be turned so that we can see what we could possibly grow in the future. So with that being said, I'm going to defer to you.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance of the Town of Superior amending Article 12 Plan Development P zone. In ordinance of the Town of Superior rezoning property from the urban residential R1A zone district to the multifamily residential R3 zone district. Action item number 2.
There's a motion on the floor by Councilmember Statico. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilmember Armitage. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. We're going to move on to the next agenda item. And that is discussion possible approval to design, procure, and install playground equipment in a dog park at the US 60 Park contract agreement between the Town of Superior and Arizona Recreation Design Incorporated AZ Rec Company, action number 3. I'd like to commend our youth council and Svetlana for all their work in working with these contracts. This is very exciting, an exciting project. This is being funded by the Resolution Copper funding for our playgrounds, and this money is already in our bank account. We're anticipating that this playground will be constructed by the end of December, and it will include a dog park. So the new park will be moved to the upper part right behind the caboose, and it's going to have a big tall tower that will be taller than the caboose. It's going to be, we figure it might even be taller than what Los Hermanos is outside with the 14-foot slide. So our kids have been hard at work picking the playground equipment. So do we have a motion to approve?
Mayor?
Unfortunately, no, there's not a doggy slide, but you can raise money for it. Yes.
We do have representatives from the company here in the house.
Oh, okay.
They do have some mock-ups for us.
All right, well, we'd love to see the mock-ups. We can fundraise for a doggy slide, yes. We heard that Rotary was funding the dog park accoutrements.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay, this is Stacy, we're from Arizona Recreation Design. We're a playground and recreation and outdoor recreational products provider. We come from Phoenix, but we work all over the state and New Mexico as well. And we're super excited to be working with you guys on this project. I know it's a big project for your town, and I think it's one of your first official park and playground. So we're really excited. We've got a big structure for ages 5 to 12, which is kind of our school age range, and then we have a smaller one for ages 2 to 5, And then we have some freestanding items as well, like some spinners and things like that. We have done our best to make it mine themed, construction themed, giving you kind of an idea of outdoor being in nature, and then using a lot of those like natural type themes of wood, rocks, things like that. As Mila mentioned, there is a tower that I believe is 26 feet tall, so it definitely will be eye-catching from far in on the US 60. Trying to think what else. So we've got accessibility was a big portion of the playground design. So we've made sure that the entire area is going to be accessible to wheelchairs. There'll be wood fiber as the main surfacing, and then we've got some poured rubber surfacing as well, which will be a unitary surface, and wheelchairs can just go right across it. So shouldn't be any trouble, for anyone to get on and use it. And we've got 3 different color options here that Anthony on your Public Works team has chosen, but we'd love for you guys to have input in this as well. You guys are going to be using it while you're children, so yeah, if you will leave this here for you guys, if you want to, if you want to take a look and give your feedback back to the council, that I'm sure they'd appreciate your opinion on it. And otherwise, I think that's really all I had. If there's any questions at all, feel free to ask questions. But like she mentioned, we're hoping to get this completely done with ribbon cutting in January for you guys.
Yeah, I think black might be a little hot.
That's a little hot. And it fades.
We've got orange. We've got a lot of orange in there. Go ahead, sir.
It's all for kids, and there's nothing in there for us old folks.
Dog park.
I don't know, Ken, I think that's spinner over.
We need a cat park.
Mr. Cook, we'll see you at the park, and I'm sure you can go down the slide. We'll have adult hours at the
I
park.
can attest that the really tall slides are fun to go down. You can get a little speed on there, so.
Even as a full-blown adult, it's fun to go back to being a kid again sometimes.
Well, thank you for being here with us tonight. We're excited to get this project, get the ground broken on it and get moving on it. So with that being said, council, we need to approve the contract so they can start ordering things. There's a motion by Councilmember Aguilar. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Navarrete. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move on to agenda item D, discussion possible approval of a contract agreement between the Town of Superior and Burke Play It Safe Playgrounds and Parks Equipment Company for design, procure, and install playground equipment at the pool and skate park. Staff recommends approving this item. The Burke Playground Installation Company for design, procure, installation. This is being funded through our CDBG grant, which is a different set of funding, so I had to go through a slightly different process. Council, unless you have any questions or comments on this, I don't believe we have a schematic with us right now.
Mayor, I did put a schematic on Facebook, so everyone might have seen it. I
Oh,
will
yes.
comment that this one is pending environmental review by Housing and Urban Development. It's a fed process, takes a little time. So we can select the contractor, but we can't sign the contract until the environmental is done.
Okay. And I think I just signed that, right?
That was, no, you signed the
Oh.
AZ rep. The environmental, yes.
Yes, I signed something for an environmental clearance today. So.
Sign what we needed so we can get the approval.
All right, thank you.
I'll make a motion to
There's a motion by Councilmember Statico, second by Councilmember Aguilar. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, CAG, for administering that for us. We're going to move on to agenda item E, discussion possible approval of resolution 19-615, a resolution of the Town of Superior approving fiscal year 2018-19 general fund budget transfers providing for an effective date. Staff recommends approving resolution 19-615. This approves the 2018 fiscal year general budget transfers. And we had to make several transfers from different line items, from our contingency into different line items. One in particular was the $29,750, and that was in our engineering costs. And I want to point that out because that's an indication of how much development is starting to happen in our community where we're having to pay into our engineering services. Fortunately, we've been watching those numbers very carefully. That's why we've been able to bring in our engineering tech in-house. That helps us keep things on track, and so we're actually saving some money. Some other areas where we had to move money is in public works. We had to move from contingency over back into public works because we bought a lot more road equipment this year and more asphalt and things like that. There were higher costs than we anticipated. We're using a little bit more office supplies and things like that, so that's why we have some of these fund transfers. And this is just part of our general accounting processes to stay in compliance. Council, do we have any further questions or comments on this? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve resolution 19-615.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Navarrete, there's a second by Councilmember Armitage, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have discussion possible approval of a Washington DC trip for 2 council members and the town manager to attend congressional meetings. As you all are aware, last month the town of Superior hired a lobbying firm to help us through the Resolution Copper draft EIS process and also acquire additional federal funding. This trip is suggested by our legislative consultants, and we will be meeting. This will be an intense 2-day trip with 14 meetings already scheduled. We will also be taking this opportunity to meet with funding decision makers for our high priority project of the Multi-Generational Center and the Enterprise and Entrepreneur Center. Total cost of travel is $5,084.24. Attending this trip will be myself, the town manager, and Councilmember Navarrete. We have a motion to
I'll
approve.
make a motion to approve agenda item 6.
There's a motion on the floor by Councilmember Armitage. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Aguilar. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're moving on to this item G, discussion of letter from Brian Hatch to the town manager Todd Pryor regarding an easement he is requesting. And council, this is really just for discussion tonight, so staff can get a feel for how to move forward. This is again a property-related issue. Mr. Hatch is requesting the town grant him an easement for access between his property and Old Phoenix Road. This property is on the lot that will be transferred to the town through a donation agreement. Alternatively, he would like to buy that area from the town. This would require a survey to split the parcels, which is already necessary to complete the property transfer, and a public sealed bid process. There's no fiscal impact. There could be possible income from the sale of the small piece of property. We need to discuss this because staff needs some kind of feel when we start to survey this property. Do we survey to do a subdivide on it or no action on it? And so we wanted to bring this to council's attention so we could have a discussion and know what we need to do here in the coming months.
Where exactly is this?
This is the parcel that was presented to council about 6 months ago for tiny homes, the old Taylor junkyard.
Oh, okay.
And it's been through its EPA phase 2 and been given a clean bill of health, so now he's moving forward with the design on it. And access is an issue for him. He would like to have secondary access on the Old Phoenix Road.
So has this lot already been transferred to the town?
It has not. It still has 3 or 4 steps to go through before it will be transferred. And one of those steps is a survey of the property to subdivide off 1 acre Dr. Wilt wants to keep for a future parking lot. If we're doing that survey and preparing a subdivision, we could subdivide off this small wedge and consider it for possible sale. It just, if we're already paying for a survey, now's the time to do it. If we want to do it. If we don't want to do it, then we'll just move forward with the survey as originally conceived.
So wouldn't it make sense for proper development of the property?
It would. It's a very small wedge between the back of his lot and Old Phoenix Road. We're never going to use it or anything. It's a slope, an overgrown slope. He would clean it up. It would never be a part of our project. So I see no harm in the transfer to him. But again, that would require a public sealed bid process. It would have to be posted in the newspaper for 2 weeks. It would have to, anybody could bid on it. Because it's a government property, but the first step would be the subdivision.
So, but how do we give you direction if the property isn't in ours yet?
Right, and then that's it's not ours, so but we are gonna pay for a survey regardless, that's the next step.
So you would need direction from us, approval to the survey.
Yes.
It's just a discussion.
This is a discussion, it's one of those things where we can't violate open meeting law, so we can, we have to talk about this openly. And there's not any real action, so this is time for council to kind of share what they're comfortable with or not comfortable with.
And again, I'm not asking for action now because we don't own the property, we can't sell it. The only consideration is the possible small added cost of the addition of this parking service.
And that's the whole Taylor lot?
It's one small wedge on the backside of the Taylor lot, between Old Phoenix Road and the existing Taylor lot. It's not very large, I'd have to look at it again, I think he's got pictures in there, but I believe it's about 20 feet wide, it's not very big.
So would we be basing this on an actual plan approval, that he's actually gonna really build this thing rather than?
He's already, yeah, he's gone through the first initial steps of rezoning, as you remember. He did present a proposed plan, but he's going to have to do a full design review on the project, and he's going to have to get the civil permits to do the underground things, such as paving the road. So there's a lot of steps yet left in the project, but he's just attempting to determine where his access point is now, which is just wise. The property also has problems. The front part, there's a similar wedge on the front part that is owned by BHP. And if you look at that lot, it's very overgrown. He's trying to negotiate with BHP to get access to at least clear that lot.
Staff, are you okay with?
That's fine. I just, this is just a request that if the council has objections to this, to let me know. If not, I'll move forward with this.
I don't have any objections, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to agenda item H, discussion possible approval of DEIS comment letter. Staff recommends approving this letter. The comment period for the draft environmental impact statement for the Resolution Copper project closes on November 7th, and the town must approve our comments at this meeting to meet the deadline. The intent of the DEIS is to list all of the possible impacts of the mine proposed mitigation plan. It is important that we advocate for our community and make sure that the mitigations meet the needs of our residents. The letter has been discussed in the council work session in September and extensively vetted by numerous sources. So, council, you have a copy of the latest draft. I believe there were still a few more revisions that went through at the end of the day today.
Yes, I did send, I made two minor
And there's
changes.
a hard copy.
One, I added more language around the relocation of the filter plant to town limits, and stating that if it was relocated, that we should request the mine commit to making it available for additional industrial and recreational uses, and not just their own. And I added language saying that the water mitigation should be included as part of the 404 permit, which gives it a lot more enforceability.
Todd, are you against putting in a letter of support, a statement in there?
I'm not, but that's a political decision of the council, and I would hate to speak for the council. My feeling would be that the EIS is very much a document written around discussing the impacts of a project, which it very clearly says is moving forward. There is no option to say no to the mine in the EIS. So our support or lack of support is kind of irrelevant at this point. I'm not against a simple statement of that, but that would be up to the council. If you give me some direction of a sentence you would like me to add to the first paragraph, I'd be happy to add that.
And that's where we have it. We can add a sentence. I'm looking at our entry statement, and it says a key stakeholder. The town would like to comment on several areas where we would like to support the document's conclusions, or where we feel the document can be improved or clarified. So we've addressed that. There's a key word that can be used in this, and that is if. Support is contingent if our needs are met. And there are serious things that we have to advocate for in regards to water, environmental justice, socioeconomic concerns, housing, public safety, traffic, recreation, the Bronco Creek situation, funding assurances, filter plant, and the land exchange. I think we can say that, you know, the town supports mining. We are a mining community, and we support Resolution Copper if our needs are met. But going back to the town manager's point, the legislation is done. The land exchange is technically approved, and there is nothing in the federal process that makes this mine not open. So we're really at a different stage in this process where we're advocating at what is absolutely best for Superior and what we have to advocate on. So, council, how do you want to proceed here? We need to have a discussion.
I feel the way it's
I
presented,
also-
it's.
I'm fine with it.
Okay? Anybody else have a feeling on that? Does anybody want a more defined statement?
I don't know, I think it wouldn't hurt.
I think it wouldn't hurt either.
Based on what you're saying, it doesn't matter either. Anyways, it's not gonna hurt. It's a good faith effort to put that in there, one statement. Saying we support mining and support Resolution Copper. I mean, if you're telling us that it doesn't matter either way, then that's not gonna hurt either way, so put it in.
I would absolutely agree. Again, that's a political statement of opinion, and I can't make
Yeah,
any
that's beyond Todd's pay grade. That's our, you know, that's where we make the big, huge zeros here. So, council, I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve the letter either with adding a sentence, or somebody can make a motion to approve the letter as is. Well, first, does anybody have anything else they want included or added to the draft letter?
No,
Okay.
I think that
I think you guys did a
staff-
great job.
Yeah.
I want to really commend staff because we went through this and we've talked to lots of different people, we've been to lots of meetings, and those really have just begun. So, okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion.
I mean, that we leave the letter as is.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the letter as is. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, and I'm a nay, so it did not pass. So do we have a
Make a
motion?
motion to approve the letter with a statement of support.
There is a motion to approve the letter with a statement of support.
Second.
Then there's a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. So it's a 4-1 vote. Do you want us to do a roll call? We didn't do a roll call vote, so.
Code does call for a roll call vote on if it's not unanimous.
Okay.
As long as we can identify who voted those.
Okay, so do you want me to call a roll call vote? Okay, so the roll call vote, the motion and the second was on to approve the letter with a statement of support. All in favor, Councilmember Navarrete?
Yes.
Councilmember Statico?
Yes.
Councilmember Armitage?
Yes.
Councilmember Aguilar? And I'm a yes. So it is a 4-1 vote. Do I need to go back to the other motion for you, or did you get that? So there was a motion on the floor by Councilmember Aguilar with a second by Councilmember Armitage to accept the letter as is, and the vote on that was Councilmember Armitage. You have to tell me what you
No.
voted. No, you voted yes on the first one.
No, I voted no on the first one and yes on the second one.
Because you made the second on the first one.
Oh, you're right. Yes, I voted yes on yes. I voted yes on both of them.
Yes, you voted yes on both of them. Okay, Councilmember Aguilar,
Yes on the first one and no on the second one.
Councilmember
There
Navarrete,
was no on the first one.
Councilmember Statico,
No on the first one.
and I was a no on the first one. So thank you, council. And for the public, I'd like to just let you know this copy of this letter is available publicly. We're going to be putting it online. Our staff has done very extensive research to make sure that we don't, that we're checking in on everything. So we want to appreciate everybody's time on this. And there's still time for residents to make their own comments up until November 7th. You can go online to do that. And those comments are very much appreciated, especially if you live in Superior, no matter how you feel about the particular project. So that is approved. We're going to move on to agenda item I, discussion and possible approval by the town council directing staff to initiate annexation and to file a blank annexation petition with the Pinal County Recorder for an annexation of approximately 6,000 acres of real property west of the current town limits. Recommendation is that council direct staff to file a blank annexation petition with the Pinal County Recorder for an annexation of real property west of the current town limits. Discussion. Annexation is the process by which a town must assume jurisdiction over unincorporated territory adjacent to its incorporated boundaries. As such, annexation represents a significant step in the overall growth of a town. In Arizona, annexation requires the consent of the owners of at least 1/2 of the value of the real and personal property and the consent of more than 1/2 of the number of property owners in the territory to be annexed as documented by the latest county assessor's data. Completed petitions must be filed with the county recorder within 1 year after the last day of the 30-day waiting period. In addition, the consent and action of the town council are required. Before an annexation petition is circulated, there is a 30-day waiting period after filing the blank petition and corresponding map legal description with the Pinal County Recorder. Within the last 10 days of the 30-day waiting period, the town must hold a public hearing to discuss the annexation proposal. In addition, all notice requirements for this annexation, public hearings must be met. So we want to, council, this is something we've been working on. Our community development committee's been working diligently to address the maps. This does take in the properties that the town will be able to purchase from the federal government when the record of decision is complete. So do we have a motion? There's a motion by council member
I need to clarify this to make sure you understand. The timelines in this mean that I will not be submitting this blank petition until December 10th. The council's on break in December, and I have certain timelines I have to meet for everything. So the public hearing is scheduled for January 9th, which is your first meeting back after the break in December.
Okay.
So I won't submit it until the 10th. I will send the other required steps to ADOR and everyone else to start the clock. But the clock for the hearing will start on December 10th when I submit that letter to the county recorder.
Okay, and I think that's acceptable unless council wants to.
I have a question. What, or do we have any pre-annexation agreements in place?
We do have one pre-annexation agreement in place with Box 8 Ranch. We do not have one with Imerus, and they are the largest landowner in that area. If they decide they do not want to be part of the annexation, after public hearing, we could decide to go smaller, but we cannot increase the size of the annexation. So we could eliminate their property from the annexation. We can't go any bigger, but we could eliminate that.
And has the Arboretum submitted theirs?
No.
Okay, and the Arboretum is verbally committed to being annexed.
Technically, the Arboretum doesn't get a vote. The Arboretum is a nonprofit, and they don't have voting rights in the annexation rules.
Okay. Any other questions, council, on annexation? Does anyone prefer to move this up and have a December meeting? That is an option if you guys want. If not, we'll stick to Todd's January timeline. Okay. All right, then do we have a motion to approve? Oh, Gil, there was a motion on the floor by Gilbert, second by Councilmember Statico. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm now going to recess our regular meeting and call to order the meeting of the Superior Municipal Property Corporation. And I'm going to call the meeting of the Municipal Property Corporation to order at 8:19 p.m. Roll call, Councilmember Armitage.
I didn't even know I was on this board, but I'm here.
Councilmember Aguilar. Yes, we're all part of the Municipal Property Corporation. Councilmember Navarrete.
I'm here.
Councilmember Estatico.
That is to my email.
Yes, please add it to your signature.
Here.
And I am present. Please let the record note that Vice Mayor Alonso and Councilmember Lopez have excused absences today. They don't get invited to the annual dinner. Okay, you guys get some chicken tenders from farmers. Discussion and possible approval of bylaws of Town of Superior Municipal Property Corporation. So we have to approve our bylaws. This corporation is what allows us to take out our USDA loan on our wastewater treatment plant and other projects like that. So we need to approve our bylaws. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the bylaws?
I so moved.
There's a motion by Councilmember Navarrete. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Armitage. All in favor?
You call us council members, we're not council members, we're actually board members.
I'm sorry, okay, board members. Board member Navarrete made a motion, and board member Armitage seconded the motion. All in favor, board members? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. All right, now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Municipal Property Corporation. There's a motion by board member Aguilar. Is there a second?
There's a second.
Second by board member Armitage. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We now return back to the regular session, at which time I will call to the public. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the council?
I have a question of Todd. Todd, on that issue that I spoke on, I guess I better take my.
Marguerite, Ms. Clark, really quick. I didn't get to read my whole open call to the public spiel. At this time, you can address the council. We cannot necessarily answer questions. We can only, after your comment, direct Todd to talk to you. If you have something you want to talk to Todd about, I'm sure you can grab him after the meeting.
I wanted to address it to everybody.
Okay, you can make your comment, and then what we'll have to do is direct Todd to talk to you after the meeting. So you have 3 minutes. Everybody gets 3
I
minutes.
don't even want 3 minutes.
Okay.
My only suggestion is, on the particular board that was at Richard and Panther, did not list parcel numbers. It only gave section, township, and range. So you had, as a guessing game, is exactly where were the 16.07 acres that was listed on that board. My suggestion is parcel numbers be given. My approach would have been 1,000 times different.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. We'll duly note that. Okay, I'm going to go to the list. We have Jim Shank.
On behalf of the chamber, I'd like to remind everybody we're having the Superior Borough Run Saturday. Begins at 8:30. There'll be a 3-mile fun run, a 6-mile run, and a 12-mile run. We're going to have food at the food court and on the street. There'll be some vendors. We invite you to come and enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shank?
I'll be quick too, because we all want to go. You know, first the flowers. This is the best town council. I think every one of you and the 2 members that are missing have done an amazing job. And, you know, I support you 99% of the time. However, there's always a however. I think the council was short-sighted last month. I think that the issue with the Belmont property
needed. Obviously, I wrote a letter in favor of that project. I understand that the council did not find the terms advantageous for our town, but I do think that the town should have considered discussing with the person presenting the project alternatives. I'm an owner of a business in the historic downtown. I think it's the kind of business that we need to bring tax dollars and tourists and to increase our quality of life. So I just ask the council to take a look at that project again. Thank you.
Last call to the public. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. We're moving right along here tonight. We have no executive session items, am I correct? And we are going into summary of current events, and I'm going to start with Councilmember Navarrete.
Just looking forward to Copper Helmet football game tomorrow and the 4 o'clock event on Saturday.
Councilmember Statico.
In 5.5 years, this is the first meeting I haven't heard Mr. Cooper say basically, so I'm moving on.
Basically, you're right.
Councilmember Armitage.
I just wanted to pass along my comments to, or my congratulations to the staff for the EIS comments. I thought they were great and well thought out. I also want to encourage those of you that are in the sound of my voice that if you have an opportunity to submit comments, please do so by November 7th, of course. The Arboretum is having a sale tomorrow for those of us that are members, and it's like 40% off of 20% off? Okay. It's
Fundraiser for 20% off. Go buy lots of plants.
So go buy some plants. And only 2 more things, Mayor. Number 1 is, I heard today there's some fake $20 bills going around town, so be careful when you pick up a $20 bill, make sure it's, I don't know how you do that, but just put that out there, that's what I heard today. And finally, Halloween's coming up, and so be safe out there, make sure your kids are safe or your grandkids are safe, and don't forget the trunk or treat celebration put on by the VFW. Looking forward to that, it's always a fun event.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Good luck Panthers tomorrow, and good luck Boros.
Council, thank you. As always, it's a pleasure to work with each and every one of you, and thank you to our staff. They've had, the last couple of months have been pretty intense between audits, draft EIS, so I really commend everybody. You guys make a great team, and to all of our new team members, contractors, CAG, and everybody, thank you for all that you do. You are all very much appreciated. Have fun this weekend. Go Panthers. I think we're going to keep that copper helmet at home. I don't have any worry about that. Knock on wood, right? Council members, it's not going away. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? There's a motion by Councilmember Statico. Second by Councilmember Navarrete. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:28.
You don't get any votes.
How you doing?
Yeah. All right. Let's get this thing moving in your